Welcome again to another edition of the 21st Century Reformation Hour. I have the latest issue of our paper here being sent out right now. Notice the lead story is Christianity is the only saving faith. And there we have a picture of the 21st Century Reformation cross at our camp. A bunch of about 75 young people. And the Bible says, "It is finished and he is risen." That's our cross, dedicated to the memory of Dr. Kurt Marquardt. And the youngsters were shown again and again that in this day of pluralism, when so many people say you're God, whatever you make him, Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. The next story we have over here is theistic evolution equals theological atheism. Now that article was written by Dr. David Kaufman, who had been Teacher of the Year at the University of Florida. I know him very well. He's a tremendous scholar. He also has the introduction to this book here, which I highly recommend, In Search of the Genesis World, Debunking the Evolution Myth, by Dr. Eric von Fang. And Dr. Kaufman has the introduction to this book. I won't bother reading it to you, but he's the one that wrote this article, which the Concordia Journal of Concordia Seminary refused to print. It shows that theological evolution equals theological atheism. The article over here we have Bible Difficulty, Seeming Contradictions. This book here, which has been long out of print. Here it is, Bible Difficulties, Seeming Contradictions. Is actually a combination of these two books, Bible Difficulties and Does the Bible Contradict Itself? One written in 1923, the other one in 1927. Dr. William Arndt was the author of that, and they are really great books to use in Bible class study to show you that the Bible really does not have any contradictions. You know, we think sometimes all these things came up in recent years. Dr. Arndt mentioned that already or answered all those problems. Now, who's Dr. Arndt? Dr. Arndt was really one of the greatest Greek scholars that our church had. Dr. William Beck, who's the author of the Bible that we put up, American Translation, he took over the work of Dr. Arndt in Concordia Seminary when it came to historical criticism. This book here, Walter A. Maier, has quite a few statements about Dr. Arndt. Dr. Arndt actually went through every sermon that Dr. Maier preached. He was kind of the censor. They lived close to each other. And when Dr. Maier died, Dr. Arndt, that was in 1950, Dr. Arndt had one of the addresses at the funeral there, and that address is in this book here, Walter Maier Still Speaks. Now, then we have an article here on Maier, Arndt, and Beck. Sometimes people say, well, they are fundamentalists, and the brief statement. All of them affirm the inerrancy of the Bible, as the brief statement does. And that's sometimes what I'm accused of being a fundamentalist. In reality, Lutherans out-fundamentalize the fundamentalists. The fundamentalists, when it comes to the Lord's Supper, where it says, this is my body, this is my blood, the Lutheran says, no, it really is. The fundamentalist said it represents. So in that sense, we out-fundamentalize the fundamentalists, just like we out-Catholicize the Roman Catholics. When they say their church began, say with Peter or whatever, our church began already in the Garden of Eden. We out-Catholicize them. By Catholic, we mean universal. Then I have a very interesting news release pushed out. The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod's president explains why Herman Sassa is an important voice today. That's a new book just put out by Concordia Publishing House, Letters to Lutheran Pastors. You have a picture of Dr. Sassa there. It's an interview by Paul McCain from CPH of President Harrison. He has translated quite a few of the books of the letters of Herman Sassa. And it's very interesting here. We have, what I did here, I reprinted some of the letters that Dr. Sassa wrote to us. I've known Dr. Sassa for many years. We probably have more personal letters in my files than any living theologian today from Herman Sassa. I met him in 1959 at the San Francisco Convention, and here we have some of the letters. He actually went to bat for us. He thought that Christian News was a tremendous paper. It should continue. He said, when you started your paper, you could not anticipate what a tremendous work you are undertaking. Well, you can read the rest of what he wrote, because I really want to get to maybe what is the chief thing. Harrison responds to LCMS participation in Newtown joint worship. You know, we've been mentioning here now on Christian News that we couldn't get any answer from our president what really happened. Well, he finally had to come out. And he had a letter there explaining what happened, his position on it, and basically it's pretty good. He reaffirmed Walther's position on church and ministry, and they also have a response by the pastor that was involved. And then we have an article by Pastor Jack Cashone where he refers to Baal or God, you know, the advice that Elijah gave. He says, now look, you have only one God. The only true God is Jesus Christ. That's what should have happened there. So we have President Harrison's total letter, and also the letter from the pastor that was involved. And in closing moments, a dying man meditates on justification. Last week we talked about Pastor Bartling. Many of his articles were reprinted. Here we have his last letter. He said, what am I doing as I'm dying? I'm thinking of justification by faith alone in Jesus Christ. He is my only hope, my only Redeemer. My dear friends, may you, when you leave this world, also leave it thinking of your justification, that Jesus died for you. God be with you. We'll see you next Sunday.